Thank you, Daniela. It is time for the headliner and our guest. It's about time. I mean, we've run out of time so many times. He's waiting. He's eager to get on. This is probably, for a man who has an illustrious career as he has had, an immortal of the NHL, to be on the headliner. It doesn't get much better than that for him, and I know that. It's the Executive Vice President, General Manager of the Red Wings. Steve Yzerman joins us. Steve, thank you. I'm glad we finally had the time to get you on. Thanks.
All right, my pleasure. Enjoy it and looking forward to it. I had to win the Stanley Cup. I had to win the Stanley Cup to just get on with David Letterman, and now this is even harder show to get on.
Yeah, well, you know what? I have really high standards. You know, they've always said, "What about Yzerman?" And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, let's give him a little more time.
After this interview, your followers will understand why.
Yeah, well, definitely. You know, David Letterman, though, that had to be a pretty cool experience, though, wasn't it? I mean, that was pretty good.
Yeah, it was actually really good. He was very, very, very nice. Two funny side stories to it are I'm actually sitting there in the green room, I guess, and they come in to do your makeup or whatever, and the lady says, "Hey, you want a hair? Yeah, can I give you a haircut?" I'm like, "Perfect. I'm going to get a haircut out of this deal." She said, "Let me trim it up," and I'm like, "Perfect." I'm sitting there getting a haircut, and George Clooney walks in. I guess he was on the show that night, and he came in and got to meet George Clooney and talked to him for a few minutes. So it was a pretty cool event.
Yeah, well, that's good. You know, George Clooney, I guess, is born in Kentucky, raised in kind of the Kentucky-Ohio border. His dad was a big newscaster in Cincinnati, so I'm sure he's probably familiar with who you were, what the Stanley Cup was all about, and hockey, since he, is from this area of the country. With that said, though, I have to, I can go on and ask you just a bunch of BS questions forever, so and not ask you one hockey question. But I know we're early in training camp. Your first impressions of what you've seen thus far?
Vast majority of the guys are in excellent shape, which we expected. Get a chance to just quickly work with the or talk to the trainers, the strength coach about how the guys are looking coming in, and overall they were extremely pleased. Watching the tempo of the practices the first few days are very, very high, which doesn't surprise me at all. As I said, these kids are these players are anxious to get going and excited to get going. So watching them for 3 days has been great. Whipping the puck around, skating fast. So everybody looks great now. We'll get into some scrimmages later this week and ultimately building towards a game. But it's really, to me, it's hard to assess, just watching practice. You want to see the guys in real games against opposition when now they're going 100% in all the drills. You just can't do it, obviously, to the same extent in practice. But we're up and we're running. Things are very well organized from our coaching staff, our staff in the back room. It appears that we're going pretty smoothly, and it's real good to be back. So let's get training camp, get through all the necessities of training camp, and get the season started.
Well, you said something during one of your Zoom press conferences during the prolonged offseason that let's wait and see who's really serious, who's not sitting on the couch eating bonbons during this period, but actually working out. It sounds like from your assessment, virtually every Red Wing was working out and taking care of themselves and has hit the ice skating, so to speak.
Yeah, no, I haven't. Like we do some, or the sports performance staff does some testing on the first day, fitness testing, a lot of different things they do. And I've just gotten kind of a general update from them, and really everybody's pretty busy the first few days. So generally you hear about the guys, wow, this guy was unreal good, or this guy was surprisingly bad. I haven't got any heads up on this guy didn't do anything. So we'll get a chance to really go over the results on a one by one basis and get a better idea of it. But to the best of my knowledge at this point, I'd say the vast majority of our guys really took advantage of the time that they had to train and to improve what they could with an extended off season. So it's encouraging at this stage. From what I know, it's encouraging that the guys really made a commitment to take advantage or make the most of the time during the the off season, the shutdown, and whatever you want to call it, the pandemic, I guess.
Okay, when I want to look at, I am obsessed with the second line. I know the Red Wings need balance scoring. Robbie Fabre, who wanted to play center, great trade by you last year. That he's come in, he scores a lot of goals. He's center. He's playing with Zadina and Bobby Ryan at this point. I know that's subject to change probably, but how essential is it to I know you want balance scoring, but to get a second line that can relieve some of the pressure from Dylan and Mantha and Bert.
Yeah, well, you just any team, regardless of how good one line is, you just can't rely on a small group of guys to do it night in, night out. Like we want to be a good team defensively too. It's not just all about scoring as many goals as we can, but we need more depth. Good teams have depth. So you mentioned that Fabry combination. I can't tell you that's going to be on opening night. That's going to be a line. I don't even can't even tell you for certainty that Robbie's going to be playing in the middle. I assume he will, but you know what? He grew up as a centerman. He played center through junior. He was drafted as a center. The Blues had their reason to play him on the wing, and we played him on the wing last year. And Jeff Blashill and I talked. I think he played maybe one or two games just prior to when we shut down last March. The plan was to throw him in the middle and let's see how he does there. Unfortunately, I think we played one or two games. It might have just been one, and we never got to see it. So we want to give it an opportunity. We need more offense out of the middle. We need more offense out of all of our forward lines. But if Robbie can adjust, and I think a coach's got to give him some time there. And I can't tell you it's one game or 20 games, but give him some time there and see if he can fill it or not fill in. He can do the job and be comfortable there. So I'm curious to see how it does. One thing was Robbie's a worker. He's really, really competitive, and he's got some good smarts out there. So I'm pretty optimistic that he can adjust to getting back in the middle.
When you look at this, and I know because of time I have to jump all over the place, but Philip Zadina. I mean, I got to be honest with you, Steve. I like the kid. I love his shot. I always get Anthony Mantha all upset when I tell him that Zadina has the best shot on the team. I know that upsets him. But with Zadina, he is chomping at the bit. It looked like he was coming on last year. He got hurt. Do you expect him to be able to be a top six forward on this team and score goals? Because he certainly has the shot to score goals.
I think that's a very reasonable goal expectation for him. I don't know that it's going to happen on the first day of on January the 14th, but I think it's very reasonable as I look for him to become a top six forward in the NHL and a scorer, whether it's a 25, 30, 35, 40, whatever. I don't know at this point, but what I'm really encouraged by is the work he put in last year. And you're right. We thought he was playing very, very well prior to injuring his foot. And then he never got a chance to come back and play. Did very well in the Czech Republic in the first half of the year playing over there. He's training hard. He's working hard off the ice, on the ice. He looks, for what it's worth, he looks really good in the practices. He does have a great shot. You are much more knowledgeable than I am at who's can really shoot a puck or whatnot. So I'll let you decide who's got a better shot between the two. But I'd say he looks like a goal scorer. The way he gets open, the way he is in the slot, he can rip it pretty good. I'm hoping he and Mantha are both really good goal scorers because we got plenty of room for them both.
Well, definitely, I agree with that. I just like to get I call Anthony Mantha the BT Express, the Big Tony Express, and I love to get BT going, and definitely telling him that Zadina has a better shot gets him going. With all that said, I guess the elephant in the room is, and no one knows this better than you do, is that the captain of the Detroit Red Wings is like all encompassing. I mean, not only are you the leader of the team, but you become in the spotlight for the whole city, the whole state, and all that. I know I'm not saying you're hesitant to name a captain, but what criteria are you looking for? I know you've said you're going to name a captain, but I mean, we're going through weird times now, Steve. You think it's an appropriate time to name a captain? Are the Red Wings at that point, or are you more than happy to have three guys have the A and let's see where it goes?
No, Art, I think like I wouldn't characterize it as I'm hesitant to name a captain. We chose not to last year. I chose not to, and I thought, I want to get to know all of our younger players, the core of this team, and just get to know them a little bit better, and make it. These are decisions you don't make and then 6 months later change it. I think
Right,
it's
right.
important to so the only reason I didn't last year is I want to get to know all the young guys and the players that were here and the players we think are going to be here for the next, for the foreseeable extended future. So that was the reason not to last year, as I've said, and whenever asked, our intention will be to name a captain, or we will name the captain, and we'll do it before opening night.
Okay, you can't whisper it to me and tell me exactly who it's going to be, and just between me and you right here, right? Come on, Steve. Just
No, we're debating. It's training. It's open for training camp. It's up in the air, so they're competing for it. Whoever has the best camp is getting the C. How's that?
that boy, that sounds great to me. You're going to have a lot of guys pretty motivated. There's so there's so many places where I could go. The 23 man roster I find really interesting, but it's that taxi squad. And what I find interesting about that, and correct me if I'm wrong, if somebody makes the taxi squad, is it much like the AHL where if they aren't exempt from waivers, they would have to clear waivers?
Yeah, in order to like we got a 23-man roster in the NHL, same as last year. So if you're not on the 23-man roster and you are subject to waivers, then you have to clear waivers, either to be placed on the taxi squad or be to assign to Grand Rapids. So it's really another. Basically, you're you've been assigned to the American League, but instead of going to Grand Rapids, you're on the taxi squad. And in order to be placed on the Red Wing roster, we need a roster spot for you. So if we're at 23, either we have to assign another player from the roster, and if he needs waivers, then he would have to go on waivers. If he doesn't need waivers, we can just assign him and recall a player. So or if you place a player on injured reserve. So our roster at a max is 23. The taxi squad, I think, is a necessity and a good idea by the NHL, the PA, to have, because really it's been designed to keep players kind of in your environment, the same testing, the same protocols that the NHL team has. So you don't have to potentially, if you need a player on short notice, he doesn't have to quarantine for a week, where they might, depending on what you're doing with your minor league team, where they are at the moment, what type of testing you're doing, that you have access to players in the event you need them on short notice. So under the circumstance, it's kind of a necessity.
When you look at the taxi squad, do you and Jeff have in your mind how you're going to piece it together? I know you want them to play, even though the taxi squad will be with the Red Wings, practice with the Red Wings, and travel with the Red Wings. If the AHL gets going in February, is this kind of what you did in Europe, where you want these guys playing? So is it more beneficial to have these guys in GR playing, or would you rather have them in Detroit?
Those are all legitimate questions, and that's kind of what we're debating. It depends on who's on the Red Wings, depends on who we assign, or first of all, it depends on what our 23-man roster with the Red Wings is like, and then or what it shapes up to be, and then we decide on those players that aren't on the 23-man roster. Are they better off, whether it's I don't want to just single out a young kid or whatnot, but if it's better to have them playing in the American League, or do we want them ready to go in case we need them for the Red Wings? So there's a lot of kind of factors that come into it. So we're debating. We know we can have between 4 and 6. We're debating: do we go with 2 goalies, 2 forwards, and 2 D-men? Do we go with 1 goalie and roll the dice a little bit and have the other goalie practice or playing more games in GR? 2 goalies having more playing time in GR, or do we go with a smaller group? Say 4. You got to have 4 and get everybody else in the Grand Rapids so they're all playing and go that way. So those are decisions that have to be made by the 13th, and we'll make them. So those are all kind of things we take into consideration in the decision. But it'll start with, okay, who's on the 23-man roster, and then the guys that aren't, then we figure out who's best served where, who best serves the needs of the Red Wings, and what best serves their development or their play, the individual, based on where they're at in their careers.
Does having Grand Rapids so close, although I guess you may have to make a move when you're on the road someplace, but having the proximity of Grand Rapids, does that make it actually maybe a little bit easier where they're really only 2 hours down the road as opposed to Port Kent Holland, who has to call guys up from Bakersfield, California?
Yeah, correct. Hence the need for the taxi squads. But yes, it certainly, you have a couple of teams where their farm team is right in their own city, which makes it even in a normal circumstance, it's advantageous having the ability to get them back and forth. So potentially, yeah, it makes it easier. But if Grand Rapids is out in another city, in another state, that kind of takes away whatever advantages, or potentially takes away whatever advantages you might have had. But definitely it helps having them 2 hours down the road. Eliminates, obviously and I'm not sure really what Edmonton, Bakersfield, what they're doing, how they're planning on operating it. But I think from going to the U.S. into Canada, there's definitely going to be some form of quarantine needed for anybody, athlete, whatnot. So that, I think it adds an extra layer into it. And actually, we haven't really figured it all out, but potentially, depending on where Grand Rapids is, if we need a player, he still might have to quarantine for a week. Again, every
Really?
circumstance is a little bit different depending on where they are, how they're traveling, which state they're in, because everybody has different, every government has different mandates or restrictions.
I want to ask you now. I'm going to really flip out on you here and get overly enthusiastic. But Mo Seider, Joe Veleno's starting to tear it up in the Swedish league right now. I think 5 points his last 7 games, including 4 goals. Playing the wing in Sweden right now, Veleno. I know he's scheduled to be a center. What more does Mo Seider, I guess, in my mind, need to prove when they come back? Are they slated taxi squad? Are they slated GR if GR is playing, which is Grand Rapids? Or maybe in Seider's case, are you going to give him a shot with the Wings?
That is so far down the road right now of decisions that we have to make. I haven't even really given it any consideration. They're both doing really well in a very good league. We're really pleased with that. We'll see, depending on when their seasons end, and we'll see where they're at in their play, and to decide, and where we're at with the Red Wings to decide when their season ends. If there's time left in our season, which I expect there to be, does it make sense to bring them into Detroit and play them some games? We're very encouraged by both young guys, how they're doing. It's been great for them to play over there. And as you say, Joe, he just seems to be getting stronger and stronger as the season goes on. That's exactly what happened for him last year in Grand Rapids. He didn't have great numbers down there or over in GR, but he played really well. And as the season was going on, instead of a young guy at the start trying to figure out, just like adjusting to the league in early March there, we're watching him, and he was making stuff happen and really contributing he was becoming a difference maker on the ice in a lot of little areas that don't necessarily show up on the score sheet. So we're encouraged by it. We'll decide once their seasons are over. Hey, do we bring him into Detroit and put him in the lineup? Do they go to the taxi squad? Or those are all options, and we'll make those decisions in late April probably it is, or maybe early May, depending on when their season's end. Actually, even potentially earlier if the teams end early.
I have to leave it there, Steve. I know you're busy. Thank you for joining us. I promise the next time you're waiting to get on the Word on Woodward, when you're holding, I will get to you immediately. I will not blow you off like I have in the past. But thank you for your time, Steve.
Because remember, I was in the bathroom with you doing those interviews way back in the day, so don't forget that too. Okay.
You sure were. The legendary Studio P, which the Red Wings, once they figured it out what that stood for, made me change the name of the studio. So, but anyway, it was great times as always, Steve. As you know, I certainly I like you very much. I always have. You're a great Red Wing player. You could even turn out being a better executive, and that's astounding to me. But you could. You're doing a hell of
Or
a
not.
job behind. Well, or not. Well,
Or not.
I still
And then
like
when
what you
we
said
have it,
about.
then you'll feel differently about me.
Yeah. Hey, you know, and
I
you
know
know I
how it
will.
works. I know
You
how
know,
it works.
yeah, this is how it'll be. You know, I had high hopes for Yzerman. What the hell happened?
Oh, I've seen you go off, and I'm hoping I don't have to see it. I'm on the other end of it one day.
Your name isn't Wayne Font, so don't worry about it. All right. Thank you very much, Steve. It's always a pleasure. Best of luck to the Red Wings this season and in the future. Really appreciate your time on the headliner. Thank you.
Thanks, Art. Appreciate it. Have a great afternoon.
You too. All right, that'll do it for the headliner presented by Miller Lite. It is the original light beer, only 96 calories. It tastes delicious, and it is available for delivery. Daniela, back to you.